Hello, this is Patrick Barnett in Montreal. It's a Wednesday, February 12, 2025, and this is the third edition of the International Press Review. It's been an extraordinary week in the world. It's not even finished yet. We're at Wednesday. There's a momentous weekend coming up, but I'm filing this report now. Now today, this Wednesday, there was a meeting of the NATO leaders in Brussels, Belgium. And at that meeting, the United States did two very disturbing things. First of all, it seemed to be abandoning Ukraine completely. Now, they're saying they're not doing that, but that's what many European leaders thought in Brussels. And the other thing that happened was the United States said that it expected all NATO members to contribute 5% of their GDP to defense. Now, the United States doesn't even do that. And I have reported before that this very unrealistic demand is something that could easily break NATO apart. And people in Brussels felt that today, and they felt very worried and very somber. There was this shadow, the shadow that the United States at one point, if it keeps up its present isolationism, will actually walk away from NATO, even though they say they're not doing that. Now, this difference between appearance and reality popped up in another story this week. King Abdullah of Jordan, Jordan has 50% of its population of Palestinian refugees. King Abdullah met at the White House with Donald Trump. And this was at the same time that Donald Trump has said that the United States is going to own Gaza and that the Palestinian population in Gaza will be removed. He didn't explain how the Palestinian population will be removed from Gaza, but that was what was said. King Abdullah, when he met Trump this week, was very pleasant. The photo ops were nice. The king was very, very accommodating to Trump in his remarks, the king's remarks. But we know that behind closed doors, the king made it very, very clear to Donald Trump that under no circumstances would Jordan agree to the removal of the Palestinian people from Gaza. And that is the common position of all Arab leaders. You can get an idea of what the feeling was in the country by an article in the Jordan Times with the headline, "Journalists Protest Displacement of Palestinian Scheme, Shows Support for King." And I'm going to read the first paragraph. This is how it reads. Local media organizations, in cooperation with the Jordan Press Association, on Tuesday organized solidarity rallies to show support for His Majesty King Abdullah's stance against the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank. So that is the Arab position. Donald Trump's idea flies completely in the face of what people in the region want. Now, I've discovered a very interesting source for news about the Middle East. It's called Middle East Eye, and they give a very interesting perspective on the appearance and reality of what's happening in Gaza. They carried a story very recently with this headline. U.S. says Hamas has replaced almost all killed fighters in Gaza with new recruits. Now, the person who gave this information in public was none other than the former U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and in his last public speech, he revealed this information. It's very difficult to know what's actually happening in Gaza, but there are a few people who do know about this and speak about it. One of them is a man called Paul Rogers, an Englishman. He was on CBC Radio a great deal. People respect him tremendously. He's retired from his post at the University of Bradford, where he taught peace studies, but he's also paid attention to by a lot of people in the security establishments of various countries. Middle East Eye, this week, just recently, published an article about what's called the Dahiya Doctrine. And Paul Rogers drew attention to this a year ago, really, when he wrote a very prophetic description of what was going on in Gaza. What is the Dahir doctrine? It is a doctrine of the Israeli Defense Force. Dahir is a suburb of Beirut. In the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah, Dahir was a place where the guerrillas, Hezbollah, were very deeply embedded in the local population. The decision was taken to destroy the civilians, destroy the infrastructure, destroy everything that could be seen through the use of disproportionate force. And that doctrine, the Dahir doctrine, has in fact become official strategy in the Israeli army. And that is what we've been seeing at work in Gaza. Now, Paul Rogers drew attention to this a year ago in an article that he wrote for The Guardian in England. The title of the article is Israel's Use of Disproportionate Force is a Long-Established Tactic with a Clear Aim. Now, this analysis that Rogers made over a year ago is extremely interesting because he in fact said that the Dahir doctrine was being applied in Gaza and that it was very likely to fail in its objectives. Why would that be? Because the civilian population is punished, the infrastructure is punished, but the guerrillas, the army that's embedded in the population, in fact, can survive. And that's exactly what Hamas has done. They have survived underground, and according to the United States itself, they have replaced each killed fighter with a fresh one. So this is the paradox of what is going on. Gaza lies in ruins, but Hamas has not been defeated. I'm going to end this international press report with a video that actually appears on the site of the Mideast Eye, but it's also on YouTube. It's the testimony of the human rights rapporteur for Palestinian refugees at the UN. Her name is Francesca Albanese. She's an extraordinary human rights expert. And let's end this report with her words.
President Trump, oh, where to start? The short answer to your question is what he proposes is utter nonsense.
Is what?
Utter nonsense. Is nonsense. And it's unlawful. What he proposes, people talk of ethnic cleansing. No, it's worse. It's worse. It's forced displacement. Is inciting to commit forced displacement, which is an international crime. Forced displacement and further dispossession, and in the context of a genocide, it will strengthen the complicity in the crimes that Israel has been committing over the past 15 months and before. It's unlawful, immoral, and irresponsible. It's completely irresponsible because it will make the regional crisis even worse. And I truly hope that people will stay calm, will not panic, and will remember that the international community is made of 193 states. And this is the time to give the US what it has been looking for: isolation. They have survived 15 months of relentless bombing and killing, including through sniper fires. There is documentation of children who have been shot in the torso and in the head. And they have been living in tents without any access to water, any dignified access to water, shelter, food. And these people need to be helped. This is what we should really absorb, that this is a population of genocide survivors and they need to be rescued before thinking of who's going to rebuild Gaza. Of course, Gaza is going to be rebuilt and will be rebuilt, but no one has the right to say how Gaza will be rebuilt other than the Palestinians. I know that this is going to generate panic across the world. because it bears huge consequences. We live in a world where the United States are ingrained in our politics, in our lifestyle, in our in everything we do, in our economies. So this influence is hugely felt, and no one alone will be able to stand against the United States. But this will be the default option. I mean, it will be either subservience, a world made of vassals who abide by this lawlessness and nonsense that is being propagated. And the other will be to take a principled stance and say enough, so start disengaging.